Greetings, YouTubers and live videoers. It's me, Wayman29, and I thought I would come on and do another segment of our study in early Christianity, and we'll be talking about the text of Galatians, supposedly written by the Apostle Paul, and I could be off on the year, but it's fairly early, 54 AD. And there's 6 chapters to that. And Paul is duking it out with some believers of that church who came later, after he first established teachings, who came later and started to switch everything around. And Paul goes back, and this is a letter in retaliation to those sorts of things. And it's also interesting that when you read a book of, especially in the epistles and the pastoral texts, it's good to think of it as a text in retaliation to something. So when you read it, not only are you saying, oh, how can this be applied to my life today? And I believe that when you say that, you totally overlook the historical value and what was going on at the time by totally excluding the historical ideas and theories about what could have happened and why, in fact, he wrote this letter and why he was fuming about some of the things that were said. So we're gonna go over some of the theories about who these people were, and I'm gonna be posting some links to some essays at Yahshua Quest. There was an awesome debate going on there about the whole subject matter, and you could read that at your own leisure, but I'm just gonna skim the top. The first idea that comes out a lot of times is that these were Christian/Jewish sympathizers who were saying that, hey, look, you have to follow the whole law of Moses. However, the problem with this, they could have been the people like the Marcionites, who for the most part were at sometimes vegetarian because they were against eating meats that were sacrificed to gods. And at that point, with the imperial cult, almost any meat, when it was butchered, such was the case. And so they were afraid to eat the meat. And also, they were making claims that maybe the Apostle Paul wasn't exactly an apostle. You get texts coming from the Marcionian influenced texts, such as the Apocalypse of Peter, who questions later that text questions the legitimacy of Paul's claims to being an apostle. So that's just one idea. Another idea could have Essene influence, because you have the law codes of the Essenes, and these very well could have been Essene ministers trying to correct what they seen as problems with the new Jesus cults cropping up and new Christian movements. So it could have been them. And also, which is the theory that I personally like the best, they could have been Shamonite. They could have been Shamonite spies. Not spies where it's all kind of the idea of conspiracy going on. None of that. The spies were first possibly at the Church of Jerusalem, where James was, supposedly the brother of Christ. He was a pillar in the church. He sent these Shamonite sympathizers to Peter in Galatia, and Paul is upset with Peter because he says, before these people showed up, you ate meat with your congregation, and now you refrain from eating the meat that was supposedly sacrificed to idols. What's up? And so there's the issue between Paul and Peter there. However, Peter may have been afraid that he would be exposed and arrested, because the Shamites, they had the 8 law. I believe it was the eight laws that you weren't supposed to associate with Gentiles, and they would really press the Jewish law. and so they would impress upon the idea of circumcision. Now, the Shamonite leadership was not in Galatia, so these spies would not have had the political power to arrest Peter. However, if he were to travel back and news of that would have gotten back, there could have been a lot of persecution going on. And so it was the Shamonite school of thought that actually led to a lot of the friction between the Shamites and the Zealots against the imperial cult and the Roman Empire, which later ended up bringing about the destruction of the temple. So if you consider these things, when the Apostle Paul is saying that he wished that the knife would slip and they would cut themselves during circumcision, you can see how angry he was, because these people, whoever they were, Marcionites, Jewish people, Essenes, Shamites, they were causing issues at Galatia, and this was a fierce letter, beautifully written to them. And so if you take this out and you set it aside and you read it as 6 chapters, I would suggest pasting the whole text in Word format, reading it straight through without chapter subdivisions, because in the biblical text, a lot of times the chapters totally screw up the flow of the message. So you can kind of look at that and see for yourself. I will be posting some links over here to the interesting debate that happened on Joshua Quest, and some contributions that were made to that from some really brilliant contributors, and what Smadewell had to say about it. And also I have a book to recommend on that. It is Schmithal's Paul and the Gnostics. And this book was written, this book was recommended to me by S. Madewell, and it was written, I believe, in 1972, and he goes through each of the letters of Paul and talks about his retaliation against Gnosticism and Gnostic teachings, which were very, which abounded at the time. So, so there you have it. Take care, YouTubers. Take care of yourself and each other.